you've been like, you know, a champion of what we're doing with the project for a long time. And I think I learned from you what was possible with the Enneagram. So what happened, what do you, I'll take you starting from last night. What happens when you're in the room with EPP and you're in the midst of the community that's forming around this project?
Well, it's such a heart opener, you know, right from the get-go, to see these ambassadors, you know, in the room with all of us. And I feel honored, you know, that they're there, and I learn from them more than I believe I give to them. So, you know, it's a field of connection that otherwise I believe is very difficult to experience unless there is a context and a framework and a bridge that was built by your organization that allows this to happen. And I think it's a very beautiful, not only vision, but actually manifestation of all these dreams that you had, and it touches me deeply. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Marion. I feel like you understand things about how we heal that not everybody understands. And you've used the Enneagram in ways that are still new to a lot of people. So what is it that you've seen in some of the most, air quote, marginalized people on the planet that they've been able to do in the way of healing using the Enneagram that doesn't surprise you?
Well, when you become marginalized, you know, it's obvious that your being is going to experience more distress, more contraction, more a need for feeling to be protected and stay protected at all times. So according to the Enneagram language, you know, that will make your reactivity come up, you know, stronger. And it will become more difficult to mingle and to merge with the general sense of the collective social norm, because you're marginalized there. So, you know, it's a very difficult place to be in. And to me, the somatic understanding in how the body defends itself and how it survives and what the triggers are, you know, for that survival and how automatic and highly conditioned that is, creates a lot of compassion for me as a person that meets these people. Because as an 8, I don't really believe they get a fair chance to really operate in this world that, you know, we have created for them.
And having worked with some of our ambassadors in the training through the Narrative Enneagram and beyond, you've seen a progression. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I remember being in the beginning of some of these ambassadors that have been successfully integrated into societies in ways that are very powerful. And immediately when I see them, there was no time that has disappeared between the last time I saw them, which could have been a year or 2 years ago, and when I see them again, and it's like, wow, there's an immediate deep connection and a recognition of not only their humanness, but also the spirit, you know, with which they, you know, had the courage to take on, you know, becoming not only a full human being into the world, but contributing in ways that no other human being that has never really experienced being imprisoned or incarcerated or being marginalized can do. I realized very deeply that I cannot ever fully understand, you know, where they have been and what they had to overcome. And I respect that.
Yeah. So, in thinking about what people have overcome and then where they get to, I feel in a lot of ways it makes for a safer society. It makes for people that understand their defenses and then can have disarmed themselves. Now, don't need to defend themselves in quite the same way anymore. So I'm wondering if you can talk to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Enneagram is a perfect vehicle for that, for giving them that understanding without having to go through years and years of psychotherapy or years and years of, you know, physical exercises or whatever it is, you know. The beauty and the strength of the Enneagram is that it really recognizes the way the type structure organizes itself internally in order to, first and foremost, survive. And that based on these original ways at which the wounding came into people's lives and the contraction and defenses that came in, you know, initially they're going to be repeated by the nervous system because the brain likes repetition of the known and keeps us in the known. And we become less and less, whether we're in prison or out of prison, we become less and less able to be curious and open ourselves to the unknown and things that, you know, are maybe considered scary. So based on that, I think the Enneagram as a three-centered system is very helpful because, you know, knowing our cognitive patterns and our thoughts is the beginning of starting to recognize ourselves on that map. And then dropping a little further down into the emotional components is a little bit of a stretch. And our society doesn't really allow, especially the negative emotions, to be viewed and seen. So they automatically get repressed. But then to drop further down into the belly, into the instincts, you know, and the defensive reflexes, you know, that's even more taboo. You know, in our society as a first world, you know, we are over-celebrating that neocortex, and our reptilian somatic brain, you know, is not being highlighted as a place where we can gain information and wisdom that might be useful to understand why we might have done something out of an impulse and did not have control over it. And that's what I'm hoping to bring as an additional piece in the Enneagram work. How do we recognize these automatic, highly conditioned reactions that we have? And how do we work with them when they surface? And how can we relax them right at the root of the arising before they come full circle into the full behavior that goes with it?
Right. So another, I think, part of the prison where people are hurting are on the correction side, on the administration, the staff side, who also, I think, need support and need to be integrated into the work that we're doing. So how do we from the amount of years that you've had in the trenches working with people and helping them to be, you know, to disarm, how do we reach that, that set of hurting people too?
Yeah. You know, the first thing that comes up when you ask me that question is, you know, to just inform people about what it is to be human and how the human being is organized. You know, I've worked with a lot of Vietnam vets, you know, incest survivors, you know, people that were in transgendered, you know, situation, people that are healing from cancer. I mean, all of that are people that are looking for something else besides just what's available in the regular medical world or the psychotherapy world, because they want to put it together. And if you're in the leadership of being present to people in the prisons, as wardens, as organizations, the most important thing is to recognize that we're all in the same boat. So even when we're, you know, human beings working with people that have had difficulty being able to behave in a particular way that's acceptable, you know, and therefore they ended up doing something that they didn't have any control over. The people that actually are in the prisons working with these people, as well as people that are in management, they need to understand that we all lose control all the time. Even them in different ways and in different, maybe lesser altercations or maybe unseen altercations. We're just better at hiding them so that it wasn't really being noticed, that we're all in the same boat. You know, we all have the same structure, and it can happen to any one of us at any time. And once you realize that, you know, I think the relationship between you know, the people that are in prison and the people that work in prison and manage prisons, or us coming into prison, it creates, you know, a field of compassion and understanding that I believe might be missing because of the segregation and the separation, you know, that is currently in these places where we feel like we have to be above and beyond, or we feel that we above and beyond them.
So 2 more questions. Can you talk about being impacted yourself, being in the jail, sitting, working with people, and you know, you're an 8, and part of what makes you beautiful to work with is your own vulnerability. So can you talk to that?
Yeah, it's clear, you know, that when you first come into prison, and I wasn't ever used to being in an environment like that, you can feel the moment you walk in, the tension, the pressure. You know, you can feel that there is something there weighing down on you. I'm pretty sensitive in my felt sense of my being. So once I actually came through all these barriers that I had to move through with the tension that I felt in my whole being, and I entered the classroom, and the people actually entered in prison, you know, they entered the classroom and they began to speak. I mean, the vulnerability that was in the room was astounding. I don't see that kind of, even in the posturing that may have been there, you could just feel and sense the vulnerability and their readiness and willingness to really look inside, much more so than when I would walk into a coffee shop or a social place or into a movie theater. You know, there was much more distance there between the people. Even in a classroom, you know, outside, there is much more of a barrier there in the relationship than what I felt when I moved into the classroom in prison and the people came in. They touched me immediately, and all that heaviness fell away. And I was like, I felt my heart open immediately to them.
Beautiful. Thank you. I want to ask you about Europe, because you know we have a global vision, and we're realizing that, you know, a little bit at a time. Can you speak to your European sense of how we heal and your American experience of how we heal and your hope for Enneagram Prison Project?
Yeah, that's a good question. The cultural roots in my country, where I came from, which was Holland, and I've been teaching in Paris, and you know, for the last 5 years, and also presented in Europe in many different locations. My sense is that the social organization and the social connection amongst the different groups in Europe is less separated. You know, it's easier to make social contact in Europe. I grew up very much talking about, you know, all the different levels of social places that we would visit and that we would encounter. The whole law enforcement system, for instance, was not seen as the enemy. You know, I remember in the 60s and 70s, you know, the actual police people were allowed to grow their hair long together with the hippies, for instance. And they had a big mission to become friends with the community in order to make the connection and, you know, maybe lessen the separation between the particular layers of society, for instance. And that's not the same here. There's more of an obvious need to keep that separation and have the authority in place. So that I was not used to that when I first came here. And it does still bother me that that is so. And I'm not saying that every law enforcement officer is like that. I'm just saying there is in general more of a separation that I believe is consciously enforced in order to have power over.
Right. And so it's something that I observe too, and I also think that it's something that we can come alongside in Europe and learn from. And then, is there a way to translate that you found? I mean, you've straddled two cultures for a long time.
Yes, we as the EPP are really committed to humanizing, you know, both different camps that normally would not be in contact with each other. And what is going to happen today, and have the head warden from Belgium, you know, from Belgium here to walk into the American system and to just cross-pollinate these particular, you know, camps that normally wouldn't really meet each other is a beautiful way of realizing that vision that you and EPP holds, and that I also hold with you. So I will support that 100%.